My father loved the original Star Trek series episode Arena, in which a group of persnickety aliens called the Metrons forced Captain Kirk to resolve his grievances with the hostile Gorn by fighting mano a mano on a desert planet. The thing in my room was a real-life version of a Gorn. A lizard man, an upright Komodo dragon, a predator chiseled by a million years of evolution to be a killing machine. Like the Gorn, this being wore a sort of sleeveless tunic that went halfway down its muscled thighs and broad tail. Its arms also looked powerful but long and supple with protruding veins. On Star Trek, the Gorn captain is intimidating and ruthless, this is largely a consequence of him actually being a guy in a suit. He's also absurdly slow. He can pick up a boulder with which to crush Kirk's skull, but you could have a pizza delivered in the time it takes him to bring it down. I only had to look at the lizard creature in my room to know it wasn't slow. Its athletic build and its tensed posture suggested speed and strength, and the ability to strike with deadly precision. It crouched slightly, and I had no doubt it could cross the 15 feet between us in a single deadly leap. It looked at me with its blank predator gaze, and its narrow forked tongue tasted the air. My heart thundered in my chest. Did I dare call for help? By the time I moved for my data bracelet, it'd be too late. If it launched forward, I'd be dead in seconds.
"Afternoon, mate,"
it said, moving towards me, its gait rolling and confident. I noticed it had long and flat feet, wider than a human's, and it wore open sandals that revealed its narrow toes. Could it run fast in those? I didn't want to find out. Then I looked up and noticed the number above its head. A 6. It was new here. It had to be one of the initiates. The translator rendered its voice male, and for some reason in a working-class London accent. As he came closer, the creature tapped his data bracelet, and 2 holographic images came up side by side. Me and Charles. He looked at the images, and then at me. Then the images, and then at me again, as if trying to figure out which one I was. His tongue tasted the air, and his yellow eyes squinted slightly.
"You're Ezekiel, right?"
I swallowed hard. Zeke, actually, I managed. My heart was slowing down a little because, in spite of my alarm, I was starting to think the lizard was maybe a little too social for an alien assassin. He bowled both of his hands into celebratory fists.
"Right, then. I'm Steve Cooree, with the Ishi delegation. The random, which makes us mates, I reckon."
I stared at the Cockney lizard, trying to take this all in. I had processed that he wasn't going to kill me, so I was catching up, but maybe not so quickly. Your name is Steve?
"Yeah, that's right. What of it?"
I rubbed my forehead. This was too much, too fast. "Well," I said, trying to figure out how best to explain the lizard man why I thought the name was funny. "It's a name among my people. Sort of a bland name, actually. It's not really what I'd expect from an Ishi." He cocked his head thoughtfully.
"It's a fairly ordinary combination of consonants with a single vowel. There are hundreds of words with Steves on them, I should think."
"Could be," I agreed, trying to figure out how to avoid offending the alien any further.
Probably more Steves than Zekes."
"Yeah, probably." I took a step back. He flicked his tongue in the air as if trying to sense something.
"Are you all right? You are not a bit slow now, are you? And I'm getting a bit of fear off you. Didn't mean to startle you."
"Oh, it's okay," I said. I just wasn't expecting to find anybody in my room."
"Well, that's understandable, given that they're biometrically sealed against intruders and all that. I'm glad to hear you're not dim. With a random, anything's possible. You could have been mental for all I know. But I heard about you taking care of that phallic ship, so I figured you knew what you were about."
I made the same mistake with Urch, and here I was doing it with another alien, one who had reached out to me in friendship. I'd assumed that because he looked scary, he must be scary. Steve hadn't done anything to make me afraid of him, except breaking into my room, but that only meant that he was a troublemaker, not a bad guy. It seemed worth noting that in the early draft of Star Wars, George Lucas had Han Solo as a lizard man, and there was something of the intergalactic smuggler in this reptile. "So how did you get here?" I asked, deciding to press the point. Maybe he didn't want to kill me, but I still didn't know how he found his way into my locked room.
"Yeah, sorry about that," he said, lowering his gaze in apparent embarrassment. "That was Tamret. She doesn't much care for the locks, and she thought it'd be good fun to wait for you inside, so she
He sort of shrugged here.
bypassed it, I guess you'd say. Seems like she's good at that sort of thing. Then she got tired of waiting and headed out to find a place for us to get a bite to eat. Left me here to bring you along when you showed up.
Was I always going to be one step behind with this guy? Who's Tamret?
Oh, she's the random from the Ryle delegation. She's like you.
Like me? He nodded. Apparently they nodded on his world. That was convenient.
You know, all mammalian and such. Not a particularly patient mammal either. It's the self-regulating blood temperatures, I expect. Makes you twitchy. Anyhow, she'll be waiting for us, so it's time to get a move on.
What else was I going to do? Sit around and play some games? And wait for Charles to come home smelling of good times and social aptitude? Sure, I said. Let's go meet Tamret. We took a public train that crossed through one of the plazas towards a busy commercial district. Confederation Central had moved on to its night cycle, and I hurried to keep up with Steve as he pushed his way through the crowd and brilliantly lit streets. The buildings glowed with vibrant colors. Holographic billboards floated in the sky, three-dimensional advertisements for products and places and entertainment. A simple tweak of my HUD allowed me to access audio links to any of the images or have more information sent to my data bracelet. I could even use the HUD to make immediate purchases. Clearly, the Confederation had not moved beyond commercialism. Buskers turned out music, simple and staggeringly strange. The beings around us wore an endless variety of clothes, some that looked like they could have been from Earth, others that clearly could never have been from anywhere in my solar system. There were beings with mobile tattoos that moved over their bodies, or holographic accessories that flew or hovered or flashed around them. The city was like Blade Runner's Los Angeles, but without the menace or the obvious poverty. We occasionally received odd stares from beings who had never seen our kinds before, but there wasn't any hostility. We saw no homeless, nor anyone who looked poor. At last, we came to what looked like a cold and generic office building, but Steve said that this was a restaurant on one of the upper floors. So that was supposed to be especially accommodating to beings new to the station. We wandered around until we found an elevator, which we had to ourselves. It was glass and exposed to the outside. The city unfolded all around me, and beyond the dome loomed the mass of the great gas giant. Past that were more stars than I could count, and the brilliant swirls of the stellar gases. It was beautiful.
I can't believe those gits killed the Gennari,
Steve said, perhaps to break the awkward silence. I hadn't been very chatty.
That could have been any of us. There's a lot saying that you shouldn't have done what you did, but I'm not one of them. You gave them what they were asking for.
Thanks, I guess. He studied me for a long and somewhat uncomfortable moment. His tongue flashed, which I began to see meant he was trying to figure something out.
Look, mate, I can feel you're a bit hesitant to trust me. The rest of your delegation treats you like a prat, yeah?
I nodded, not really sure what a prat was, but I figured it wasn't good.
It was like that before you took care of the Phatic ship, and I expect it doubled up after. I get that you're on your guard, but me and Tamret, we're getting it the same as you. We've been locked out by our delegations. They think if we try to help them, we'll only slow them down. But that's rubbish, so we randoms have to stick together.
Yeah, I said, and I knew he was right. I'm sorry, I'm being so reserved. It's just a lot to take in. I wasn't really off my game so much as I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Despite having broken into my room, Steve seemed like a pretty decent lizard guy. Just like Charles had seemed pretty eager to be friends. I didn't want to get too comfortable before he decided he was better off associating with someone else. The elevator came to a gentle stop and the door slid open. I don't know what I was expecting, maybe some kind of crazy alien dance club with booming galactic house music, like in Mass Effect. But this was a low-key place with scattered tables mostly filled with small groups, chatting quietly. A strange sort of music wafted over the speakers. It sounded like someone had recorded a man snoring and then warped the audio, but it was interesting and soothing in a curious way. Steve looked around.
Maybe you'll pass a few hours with us and decide we're a couple of wonkers. That would be fair enough, but don't judge us first. Though the thing is, once you get to know us, you're gonna love us. Well, maybe not Tamret, but me for sure.
How could I help it? I offered, making an effort to be friendly. Steve nodded his lizard head.
You're a quick learner.
He gestured towards the bar.
There she is. That level 7 mammal over there.
I looked over to where he was pointing, and that's when I saw her. By now, I should have been past surprises, past feeling that powerful and staggering blow of the wonderfully impossible, but I wasn't. She was standing near a cluster of high tables, which I imagine were for beings who didn't choose to sit, or weren't designed to. Tamret wasn't a tall girl, a few inches shorter than me, but there was no missing her. She wore a black shirt that went most of the way down, or she wore a black skirt that went most of the way down her legs, and a short-sleeved lavender top. Her clothes could have almost passed as normal in any town in America, but she was clearly not an American. Tamret was covered entirely with cotton ball white fur, short and dense, like a bulldog's, and so tightly molded to her skin that I could make out every detail in her calf muscle as she stretched out to grab something from her table. From a distance, it almost seemed as though she were simply wearing white stockings. Her face was vaguely like a human's, but also undeniably cat-like. She had a blunt feline nose and a sprinkling of stubby, almost clear whiskers. From her head grew long, straight black hair, pulled back in a loose mass with a lavender scarf that matched her shirt and her huge, equally lavender eyes. Sticking up from her hair were two large triangular cat-like ears with the same white as her fur. Tamret was a Neko.